I'm Casey, 29, from Colorado, and I've spent my entire life watching my older brother Alex get everything handed to him on a silver platter while I got the leftovers. Alex is 3 years older, and let me tell you, he's always been the shining star of our family. You know the type, charming, smooth-talking, and could convince our parents that water was dry if he wanted to. Meanwhile, I've been the reliable one, which is just family code for the one who does all the work and gets none of the credit. Growing up, the differences were painfully obvious. Alex's birthday parties were these elaborate backyard celebrations with bounce houses, face painters, and catered barbecue. Mine? A homemade chocolate cake and pizza from Tony's down the street. Don't get me wrong, I love Tony's pizza, but when your brother's getting a 3-ring circus and you're getting leftover streamers from last year's party, you start to notice. Christmas was the worst. Alex would unwrap his brand new Xbox or mountain bike while I got the practical gifts, school supplies, clothes from Target, maybe a used book if I was lucky. When I complained, Mom would give me that look and say, "Casey, you're more mature than Alex. You understand that we can't spoil everyone." But somehow Alex never needed to learn that lesson. The real wake-up call came when I was getting ready for college. I'd busted my butt through high school, juggling advanced placement classes and working part-time at Barnes & Noble to save money. I got accepted to Colorado State University and figured I'd live at home to save on dorm costs. Alex had gone to his dream school, University of Southern California, and my parents had covered everything. Tuition, room, board, even his fraternity dues. So when I brought up my college plans, I naturally assumed they'd help me out too. Wrong. Dead wrong. "If you're staying here, you'll need to contribute," Mom said matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather. "Alex earned his full ride from us because he deserved it. You need to learn independence." I stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. Contribute turned out to mean $500 a month for rent and utilities, plus buying my own groceries. That might not sound like much until you're an 18-year-old college freshman making $8.50 an hour shelving books and helping customers find the latest Stephen King novel. I tried to argue, reminding them how they'd covered everything for Alex, how he'd never worried about money while he was pledging Sigma Chi and going to beach parties. Mom just shrugged. "We gave Alex what he needed. You're different, Casey. You're independent. You'll figure it out." So I did. I picked up extra shifts at the bookstore, sometimes working until midnight restocking shelves. I'd walk past the campus Starbucks every morning, watching other students grab their venti lattes and breakfast sandwiches while I nursed my thermos of home-brewed coffee and ate peanut butter and banana sandwiches I'd packed the night before. I bought all my textbooks used, sometimes 3 editions old, and spent hours in the library making photocopies of the pages I needed. Every month, I handed over that $500 to my parents while Alex called home complaining about how the dining whole food wasn't organic enough. They'd actually send him care packages filled with his favorite snacks and a $100 gift card to Whole Foods. I once found the receipt. The inequality was suffocating, but I kept telling myself it would be worth it in the end. I was wrong about that too. College was just the beginning. After graduation, I moved out as fast as I could, finding a cramped studio apartment in Denver and starting my career as a software developer. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I worked long hours, lived on ramen and frozen dinners, and slowly started building something for myself. Alex, meanwhile, had graduated with a communications degree and immediately moved back home. He spent his days playing video games and talking about his entrepreneurial ventures, while our parents continued to support him financially. When he finally got a job at a marketing firm, they threw him a celebration dinner at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. When I got promoted to senior developer after 2 years of grinding, they took me to Applebee's and spent the entire meal talking about how proud they were of Alex for finding his passion. The pattern was so predictable it was almost funny. Almost. When Alex started dating Brianna, our parents welcomed her with open arms. Brianna was sweet enough, but she'd never held a job for more than 6 months and seemed to think budgeting was a foreign concept. They got married in a ceremony that cost more than my first car, with our parents footing the bill for everything from the flowers to the open bar. I brought my boyfriend Trevor to the wedding, and Mom introduced him to people as Casey's friend. We'd been dating for 2 years. After the wedding, Alex and Brianna moved into a house that our parents helped them buy. Not a loan, a gift. They called it their investment in the family's future. When I asked if there might be similar investment opportunities for me, Dad laughed and said, "You're doing fine on your own, kiddo. You don't need our help. Soon enough, Alex and Brianna had kids. First came little Aiden, then Harper, and finally baby Chloe. Our parents transformed into the most devoted grandparents on the planet, buying toys, clothes, and offering to babysit whenever Alex and Brianna wanted a date night. They set up a college fund for each kid and started talking about family vacations to Disney World. I tried not to let it bother me. I really did. But every family gathering was a reminder of where I stood in the hierarchy. The kids would run around showing off their new toys while I sat in the corner, watching my parents dote on them like they were the most precious things on earth. Alex and Brianna would complain about the challenges of parenthood, and Mom would immediately offer solutions: more babysitting, home-cooked meals, even help with their mortgage when times got tough. I started skipping family events. It was easier than pretending everything was fine. That's when I decided it was time to buy a house. I'd been saving for years, living below my means and putting away every extra dollar. I had enough for a down payment, and I was tired of throwing money away on rent. But more than that, I wanted something that was truly mine. Something no one could take away or make me feel guilty about. The thing is, I didn't tell my family. Not because it was a secret, but because I knew they'd find a way to make it about Alex and his growing family. They'd start suggesting properties that would be perfect for when the kids visit, or asking why I needed so much space when I was just one person. I figured I'd tell them after everything was finalized. That way, they couldn't interfere with my decision. I should have known better. I don't know how word got out, but somehow it did. My coworker Linda, one of those people who can't keep anything to themselves, mentioned to someone at her yoga class that I was house hunting. That someone happened to be Brianna's sister, and before I knew it, the news had traveled through the family grapevine faster than gossip at a high school reunion. The call came on a Thursday evening. I was at my desk, reviewing code and trying to meet a deadline, when my phone rang. Casey. Mom's voice was unnaturally cheerful. Why didn't you tell us you're looking for a house? I should have played dumb, but I was exhausted and didn't have the energy for games. I'm just browsing around. Nothing serious yet. Well, Alex and I have been talking, and we have some wonderful ideas for you. You're going to need something with at least 5 bedrooms, for the kids when they visit. And it would be perfect if you could find something near Alex and Brianna's neighborhood. I stared at my computer screen, trying to process what she'd just said. Mom, I don't need 5 bedrooms. I'm looking for something small, just for me. Oh honey, you have to think bigger than that. This is a chance to really help the family. The kids are getting older, and Alex and Brianna's house is getting cramped. If you had a nice big place, they could visit more often, and we could all spend more time together. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. I'm not looking for a place for Alex's family to visit. I'm looking for a place for me to live. Don't be silly, Casey. Family is what matters most. You'll want space for everyone. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time, staring at my laptop screen. I should have expected this. Nothing in my family was ever just about me. The next day, the house listings started flooding in. Mom and Brianna had apparently appointed themselves as my personal real estate team, sending me links to massive houses with swimming pools, guest suites, and price tags that made my eyes water. Every single one came with detailed explanations about how perfect it would be for family gatherings. Look at this one. Brianna texted with a link to a 6-bedroom colonial. The kids would love that backyard, and there's even a separate entrance for the in-law suite. I muted the group chat and kept looking on my own. I wanted something cozy, something that felt like home. I didn't need a compound for extended family visits that would probably never happen anyway. After weeks of searching, I found it, a beautiful 2-bedroom craftsman house in Lakewood, about 30 minutes from downtown Denver. It had a wraparound porch, original hardwood floors, and a kitchen that got perfect morning light. The backyard was just big enough for a vegetable garden, and there was a reading nook in the living room that looked like it had been designed specifically for lazy Sunday afternoons. I put in an offer that same day. When it was accepted, I felt a rush of pure joy. This was it. This was mine. I decided to wait until after the closing to tell my family. I wanted to enjoy the moment without their input or suggestions about how I should have chosen differently. That weekend, Mom called to invite me to Sunday dinner. We're having pot roast, she said. And we want to talk about your house search. I almost said no, but then I thought about how satisfying it would be to announce that I'd already bought a house. Let them realize that their input wasn't necessary. "Sure," I said. "I'll be there." I had no idea I was walking into an ambush. I arrived at my parents' house in Thornton at exactly 6 p.m. on Sunday, mentally preparing myself for whatever lecture they had planned. The smell of pot roast filled the air, and I could hear the kids playing in the living room. Aiden was 7 now, Harper was 5, and little Chloe had just turned 2. Alex was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone while Brianna chased Chloe around the coffee table. My parents were in the kitchen, putting finishing touches on dinner. It was the same scene I'd walked into 100 times before, but something felt different. There was an energy in the air, like everyone was waiting for something. "Casey." Mom called out, a little too brightly. "Perfect timing. We're just about ready to eat." We gathered around the dining room table, and for the first few minutes, everything seemed normal. Dad complained about the Broncos' latest losing streak, Alex talked about some project at work, and Brianna shared cute stories about the kids. I started to relax, thinking maybe this would just be a regular family dinner. Then Mom set down her fork and cleared her throat. "So Casey," she said with that smile that never reached her eyes, "we've been doing some research, and we think we found the perfect house for you." Here we go, I thought. It's a gorgeous 5-bedroom house in Arvada, just 10 minutes from Alex and Brianna's place. It has a huge backyard for the kids, a 3-car garage, and even a basement that Alex could turn into his home office. I blinked. His home office? "Well, you know how cramped they are," Mom continued, as if this was the most reasonable thing in the world. "The kids are sharing rooms, and Alex doesn't have anywhere quiet to work. If you had a bigger place, they could spread out when they visit." "Visit?" I repeated, though I was starting to get a sinking feeling about where this was going. Brianna jumped in, practically bouncing in her seat. "We've been talking about it, and it makes perfect sense. You have all this space, and we need more room for the kids to grow. We could probably stay with you most weekends, and maybe even longer during the summer." I stared at her, then at Alex, who was nodding along like this was a completely normal suggestion. "You want to move in with me?" "Not move in," Alex said quickly. "Just visit. A lot. You know, like family does." "It would be so perfect," Mom continued. "The kids would have their own space, and you'd finally have a house full of life and laughter. Plus, you'd be helping your brother's family, which is what families do." I felt like I was in some kind of alternate reality. They were talking about my house, a house I hadn't even told them I'd bought yet, like it was a solution to everyone's problems but mine. "Actually," I said, setting down my fork, "I already bought a house." The room went dead silent. Even the kids stopped making noise in the living room. "What?" Mom's voice was sharp. "I bought a house," I repeated. "It's a 2-bedroom Craftsman in Lakewood. I closed on it last week." For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Alex let out a laugh that didn't sound amused. "A 2-bedroom? Casey, what were you thinking? Where are we supposed to stay when we visit?" "You're not," I said simply. "It's my house. I bought it for me." Mom's face was turning red. "Casey, how could you make such a major decision without consulting us? We've been working so hard to find you the perfect place." "I didn't need your help," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I knew what I wanted, and I bought it." "But what about us?" Brianna's voice was getting high and whiny. "We really need this, Casey. Do you know how hard it is to live in that tiny house with 3 kids? Aiden and Harper have to share a room, and Chloe's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to the children." I took a deep breath. "That's not my problem, Brianna. I worked hard to buy this house, and I'm not giving it up to solve your housing issues." That's when Dad decided to join the conversation. He slammed his hand on the table so hard that the water glasses jumped. "You're being selfish, Casey. Family helps family. What's wrong with you?" I stood up, my heart pounding. "I'm not selfish. I'm finally standing up for myself. And if that makes me the bad guy in your eyes, so be it." The room erupted. Mom was yelling about how she raised me better than this, Brianna was crying about how unfair it was to the kids, and Alex was ranting about how I'd always been difficult. Dad just sat there shaking his head like I'd personally disappointed him. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. You can't just walk away from your family like this. Mom shouted after me. I turned back one last time. Watch me. Then I got in my car and drove home to my beautiful, perfect, 2-bedroom house. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The texts started that same night. Brianna sent me a photo of the kids crowded together on their bunk beds with the caption, "Look how cramped they are. Do you really think this is fair?" I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? That buying a house for myself had somehow magically caused their apartment to shrink? The next day, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Mom and a series of increasingly frantic voicemails. "Casey, we need to talk about this. You're being unreasonable. Think about the children." Alex chimed in with his own guilt trip. "I thought family mattered to you, but I guess I was wrong. Mom couldn't even sleep last night because of how upset she is." I muted their numbers and tried to focus on work, but it was hard to concentrate when my phone kept buzzing with notifications. They'd moved on to Facebook, posting passive-aggressive messages about family loyalty and sacrifice. Brianna shared a photo of the kids with the caption, "Some people forget where they came from. Family sacrifices everything for you, and this is how you repay them." The comments were brutal. People who didn't know the full story were calling me selfish and ungrateful. My own aunt, who I hadn't spoken to in years, called to lecture me about putting family first. "I heard about what's happening with Alex," she said. "Can't you find it in your heart to help? Family comes first, Casey." This was the same aunt who'd forgotten my birthday every year growing up, but sure, now she wanted to talk about family loyalty. I blocked her number and kept going. But the harassment was taking its toll. Every notification made my stomach clench. Every family photo on social media felt like a personal attack. I started avoiding my coworkers because I was afraid someone would bring up the drama. The worst part was the doubt. Late at night, lying in my beautiful new house, I'd wonder if they were right. Was I being selfish? Should I have bought a bigger place? Was I really the villain in this story? But then I'd walk through my house, looking at the reading nook I'd created and the kitchen where I could make coffee without worrying about waking anyone up, and I'd remember why I'd bought this place. It was mine. For the first time in my life, I had something that was completely, unequivocally mine. The breaking point came when Alex and Brianna showed up at my house uninvited. I was in the backyard, trying to plant tomatoes, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the space for, when I heard car doors slamming in my driveway. I looked up to see all 3 kids running toward my back gate while Alex and Brianna followed behind, carrying overnight bags. "Surprise!" Brianna called out cheerfully. "We thought we'd come for a visit." I stood up, dirt on my hands and murder in my heart. "I don't remember inviting you." "Come on, Casey," Alex said, rolling his eyes. "We're family. We don't need formal invitations." "Actually you do," I said, blocking their path to my back door. "This is my house." "Don't be like that," Brianna said, tears already forming in her eyes. "The kids have been so excited to see your new place. Look how happy they are." Aiden and Harper were indeed running around my yard, but they were trampling my herb garden and pulling flowers out of the planters I'd just arranged. Little Chloe was sitting in my tomato patch, making mud pies with the dirt I'd just prepared. "Get them out of my garden," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "They're just kids," Alex said. "They're not hurting anything. They're destroying my plants. Get them out. Now." Brianna started crying harder. "I can't believe you're being so mean to children. They just wanted to see their aunt's house." I looked at Alex, who was checking his phone like this was no big deal. I looked at Brianna, who was using her kids as emotional weapons. I looked at the kids, who were turning my carefully planned garden into a disaster zone. And I made a decision. "Get out," I said. "What?" Alex looked up from his phone. "Get out of my house. Get out of my yard. Take your kids and leave." "Casey, you're being ridiculous," Brianna sobbed. "We drove all the way over here. I didn't ask you to come. I didn't invite you. This is my house, and I want you gone." "Fine," Alex said, finally looking annoyed. "But don't expect us to keep trying to include you in this family. You're making your choice." "Yes," I said. "I am." They left, but not before the kids had tracked mud through my house and Chloe had broken one of my picture frames. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the mess and replanting the flowers they'd destroyed. That night, I changed my locks and seriously considered getting a security system. I thought things couldn't get any worse. I was wrong about that too. After I changed my number and blocked them on social media, the harassment stopped for a while. I started to hope that maybe they'd finally gotten the message. I threw myself into work, spent weekends fixing up my house, and even started dating again. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. That's when Mom showed up at my door with a peach cobbler and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hi honey," she said, like we just talked yesterday instead of weeks ago. "I thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing." I stood in the doorway, debating whether to slam the door in her face or hear her out. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She set the cobbler on my kitchen counter and looked around the house like she was taking inventory. "This is lovely, Casey. You've done a wonderful job." "Thanks," I said, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "I wanted to apologize," she said, sitting down at my kitchen table. "Things got a little heated, and I realize we were wrong to pressure you. You've worked hard for this house, and I should have respected your decision." For a moment, I felt myself softening. Maybe she really was trying to make amends. "I've been thinking," she continued, "maybe we could have a fresh start. I'd love to come visit again sometime. Maybe bring Alex and the kids. They'd love to see your place." And there it was. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said carefully. "Things are still pretty tense." "Of course I understand," she said, but her smile was getting tighter. "But it would be nice for the family to see what you've accomplished. And the kids would love that backyard." I noticed how her eyes kept darting around the room, like she was measuring the space. How she asked detailed questions about my security system and whether I had a spare key hidden anywhere. After she left, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The timing seemed too convenient. She'd spent weeks harassing me, and the second I cut them off, she suddenly wanted to make peace. I decided to trust my instincts. I installed a security system with cameras, changed my locks again, and made sure all my windows were secure. 3 days later, I found out why. I'd gone out to run errands, groceries, a stop at Home Depot, and picking up dry cleaning. Normal Saturday morning stuff. I got home around noon, arms full of shopping bags, and immediately noticed Alex's SUV parked in my driveway. My heart started racing. I fumbled with my keys, trying to get the door open, and that's when I heard them inside. Voices. Laughter. The sound of kids running around. I pushed open the door and found Alex, Brianna, and all 3 kids making themselves at home in my living room. They'd brought luggage. They were unpacking. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded. "Oh hey Casey," Alex said, like this was perfectly normal. "We decided to move in while you were out. Mom gave us the key." "Move in?" I stared at him. "Are you insane?" "Don't be dramatic," Brianna said, pulling clothes out of a suitcase. "We really need the space, and your house is perfect for us. Mom said you'd understand." "Mom doesn't live here." I shouted. "I do." "Look Casey," Alex said in that condescending tone he'd perfected as a kid, "you're single. You don't need all this space. We have 3 kids. It makes sense." I pulled out my phone and started dialing 911. "Seriously?" Brianna said. "You're calling the cops on your own family?" "Watch me," I said. When the police arrived, Alex and Brianna tried to explain that they were family, like that gave them squatters' rights. The officers weren't impressed. They told them they were trespassing and needed to leave immediately. "This is ridiculous," Alex muttered as he packed up their stuff. "We're your family." "No," I said, watching them load their luggage back into their SUV. "Family doesn't break into each other's houses." After the police incident, I thought they'd finally get the message. I was wrong. The next week brought a new level of crazy. Mom called my workplace, crying to my boss about how I'd abandoned my family. Brianna posted on social media about how I'd called the police on innocent children. Alex even showed up at my gym, trying to corner me in the parking lot to talk sense into me. I'd had enough. I called a lawyer and had cease and desist letters drafted for all of them. The letters spelled out everything they'd done, the harassment, the break-in, the social media attacks, and made it clear that any further contact would result in legal action. But that wasn't enough for me anymore. I was done being the victim in their story. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of their social media posts, copies of their text messages, photos of the damage they'd done to my garden. I created a detailed timeline of their harassment and kept records of every interaction. Then I did something I'd never done before. I fought back. I posted my own social media update, calmly explaining my side of the story. I didn't name names, but I laid out the facts, that I'd bought a house for myself, that certain family members had expected me to house them for free, and that when I refused, they'd launched a campaign of harassment that included breaking into my home. The response was overwhelming. Friends I hadn't heard from in years reached out to offer support. Co-workers who'd heard whispers about the drama came forward to say they'd been in similar situations. Even some of my extended family members, people who'd been getting a very different version of the story, apologized for judging me. But the best part was the silence from Alex, Brianna, and my parents. For the first time in months, they stopped texting, stopped calling, stopped showing up uninvited. I'd found my voice, and it was powerful. A few weeks later, I got a letter from a lawyer representing Alex and Brianna. They were threatening to sue me for alienation of affection and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off my couch. My lawyer laughed too when I showed him the letter. "This is ridiculous," he said. "They don't have a case. If anything, you could sue them for harassment and trespassing." I considered it. I really did. But in the end, I decided I'd rather spend my energy on building my new life than tearing down their old assumptions. I kept the house. I kept the boundaries. And I kept the lesson I'd learned. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. Today, I'm sitting in my reading nook, drinking coffee from my favorite mug, looking out at the tomato garden that I replanted and that's now thriving. The morning light is streaming through my windows, and for the first time in my adult life, I feel completely at peace. My phone is quiet. My house is mine. And I'm finally, truly free. Sometimes people ask me if I miss my family. The honest answer is that I miss the family I thought I had, but I don't miss the family I actually had. I miss the idea of parents who would celebrate my achievements, a brother who would support my dreams, and a place at the table where I mattered. But I've learned that you can't miss what you never really had. And what I have now, my beautiful house, my peace of mind, my self-respect, is worth more than all the family dinners in the world. So to anyone out there dealing with something similar, your life is your own. Your dreams matter. Your happiness counts. And sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to stop waiting for other people to see your worth and start living like you already know it.
What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping family drama, shocking betrayals, and the revenge stories you won't believe.